There's like a water space, so like just all the different things water can do with like little, basically floatable balls and
It's
and
kind of like
pumps and.
it's kind of like the ultimate place. When you're a
Hmm.
kid, you're like trying to like figure out like the world around you and how everything operates and how everything works, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh my god, I get to like break shit and like I don't get in trouble. This
Hmm.
is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. There's like, oh geez, what did they have? There's like a sound room, so like a whole bunch of different like instruments, and like there was a tube with little pieces of styrofoam that have a specific resonance. So like on one certain frequency, it lets you kind of tune the speaker that's in there, so it can go through all these different frequencies, but only one of them. If you get that one, then that's when, if you turn up the volume on it, you can see the little styrofoam balls just start to kind of like float in the
Jesus.
air. And
It's crazy because like so much of the stuff we do today is online, but it feels like almost like you gotta like push to go outside, and interact, because if you don't, it's so easy to fall into that pattern of like, here's an iPad,
hmm,
you know, like
yeah,
here's virtual goggles, and just be a part of a completely different world for 18 hours.
right, yeah, yeah. You just fall down the rabbit hole of, I'm just going on the screen and looking at what other people have made, which in one sense is good, but in the other sense, it's like, why are you scrolling? Are you scrolling to be entertained? Just for like the little quick hits of dopamine, or is there something you're looking for? Because if there's something you're trying to actually accomplish, yeah, just the mindless scrolling, that's one of the least beneficial things you could probably be doing with your time.
Well, it's fascinating because when you look at sci-fi and just futuristic interpretations of what our future looks like,
Hmm.
you always see that the young generation is either the rebellion and the uprisers, like
Hmm.
taking in control, and they're always more alert and more aware than
Hmm.
everybody else.
Right. Yeah,
And
everyone's also has already fallen into the repetition and the complacency and just all of
oh
the
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah, all of it. And it's just like, what does that tell you? I feel like there's almost like a resurgence, especially with kids these days, where they're kind of rebelling. See, I come from early Gen Z. And the
Hmm.
weird thing about our generation is they're completely engulfed in all of this. Like, this is
Hmm.
their life,
Yeah.
24 hours, 7 days a week. Whereas the next generation, like, for example, like younger kids these days, like,
Hmm. Into the alphas and.
yeah, exactly. I don't think is going to have the same problem.
Yeah, it's possible.
What's your thought process on this? Because I feel like you're like a very like not a deep thinker, but like philosophical and almost in a way.
Um,
I
it's
know it's hard.
yeah, it's very interesting. And I mean, when I grew up, I'm a little bit older than you, so I still had sort of that upbringing where a lot of the stuff that I went through was a lot more the theater of the mind, kind of, childhood imagination, go play with a stick and it's a lightsaber and that kind of thing, and just kind of being kids outside. And then I fell early and hard into sort of the video gaming stuff from around the time I was probably 6 or 7, because I had a babysitter who had an NES, and
Oh
I
yeah,
got interested in that. And then I had a close friend that he got basically every Nintendo gaming system from
the
Super
rich kid
N-
around the corner is what we
Super
used to call
Super
him.
Nintendo
Yeah.
up to N64 into GameCube, and I think he also had like PlayStation. So he had
Oh
he
my
had like
god.
everything. He had
Was he one of
everything.
those kids that like had it all in like a case? Like it had like a light in there. No,
Mm-mm, no,
we had one of those.
he was not too particularly concerned about sort of keeping things neat and tidy and in
Nah,
order. Like, he was just a kid.
just throw all that shit.
Fun,
It's
fun hanging
crazy.
around with him. But yeah, he had all sorts of stuff. So I was always trying my best to get over there so I could just you know, use it and have fun with him and do whatever kids did. And yeah, from there I just kind of kept falling into all of the different online spaces. So like I was an early adopter of Facebook because I was on it, I think, back in 2007, and YouTube, and I was on homestarrunner.com religiously. I watched a lot of stuff on Red versus Blue and other Rooster Teeth productions. The Strangerhood was one that they hated making, and I absolutely loved it. So it drives, I think, people crazy, especially if they know what the Strangerhood is, because it's a machinima series that was made using The Sims, and the hardest thing about it is the fact that it's The Sims. So like you're trying to use the video game to make a video component to go along with like some sort of an audio story, and you can never get anything to match up the way that you want it to, like framing and all of that stuff. Like you're at the beck and call of whatever the Sims want to be doing at that time.
It's interesting because the way that The Sims was designed, like from like the get go,
Mm-hmm.
it's open source. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're talking about the same thing. Like when Sims 3 came out, most computers could not handle that. It was like you're talking about a game, and like there are games today that are way more power hungry than The
Mm-hmm.
Sims 3. Like way
Yeah.
more. Like they have like require higher like graphics cards, like they require a lot more processing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just hilarious cuz like there was that time where like people were just doing the dumbest shit ever. Like I remember there was the age of like the Clown Squad on Halo. Do you remember that? They were called the Clown Squad. So there were a bunch of these people that used to like break into like online like battles, and they
Okay.
just would just start like causing shit for no reason. And I
Right.
was like literally remember like I'm playing this game and all of a sudden like these random, who the hell are these people just showing up out of nowhere, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
We
People that
just
were
been
just
hacked.
they were
So
so good
pe-
at it that it
oh, so-
didn't matter what they did, that you basically just got taken over. And
yeah, basically like it was just hilarious. Like
mm-hmm.
I it's funny that you bring that up because there's just so much of that shit, and it's like you can kind of get away with some of that stuff. I don't know about it anymore, you
Yeah.
know? Ugh.
Hmm.
But you you've had a pretty early experience with video games. Have you like always kind of stepped with that? Like that is like, do you still play video games to this day, or that's just something that you were just doing in the past?
It's not as something I'm as religious about doing or making sure that I'm keeping up with the trends or the things that are, the flavor of the month. But it's something that I'll still kind of keep my eye on. I'm pretty heavily involved in doing game jams now, so I like helping people just make stuff. So look for whatever game jams are going on and be like, oh, you guys need a sound designer or a voice actor? Cool. I'll jump in and take whatever it is, a week, a month, and then
You like collaborating with people.
yeah, yeah, it's fun.
There there's something about connecting with other people, especially like with artistic projects. This is not necessarily like you're by yourself. You're more or less like going through like this artistic like experience with other people that are not necessarily
Hmm.
doing what you would call a normal job.
Right.
Like there are a lot of people like, they're used to a 9 to 5.
Hmm.
I got to deal with that shit. But sometimes you're able to like be in those situations like, yeah, like we're all just here having fun, and
Hmm.
just that's I kind of get that too. Like even if you're not playing video games or stuff like that, like I could see how that can inspire you at a young age to be like, I want to do something different.
Yeah. Well, I think the first time that I got the actual like bug to make video games was probably around whatever it was, third, fourth, fifth grade. Because I remember my fifth grade teacher, he had made us write down, what you wanted to be when you grew up, kind of thing, so that when we were seniors graduating, he could bring it to our senior banquet, and mine was to be a game dev, I think. is either game dev or a game tester or QA or something like that. And at this point, I think I might be. I'm not so much interested in the development side of it. Like, it might be interesting to learn a few different programming languages, but I don't really see myself taking on that role for video games. But sound design is really cool, and I liked working on that stuff. So,
I mean, especially how it has evolved. It's kind of cute because like back in the like going back even like 20 years ago, a lot of the games had very similar soundtracks. They all kind of
mhm.
sound the same.
Yeah.
They kind of use the same kind of synthesizers. You would kind of like limit it and whatever. But
Hmm.
it was kind of fun with the limitation because if you look at like some Japanese companies like Sega,
Hmm.
they took it to the next level, you
Right.
know?
Well,
Um,
and the programming languages back then, because you had
so
to try
basic.
to, you had to get it to fit on such small memory cards
Hmm.
that it's like, okay, you get 8 bits. So what's 8 bits? That's like nothing.
It
And then
is.
you
It's
get on
nothing.
to Super Nintendo and stuff like that. It's like 16 bits. Okay. It's a little bit more in terms of like the amount of data that could be held in there, but it's like just the language. Like it would be impossible for me to wrap my head around how do you make a word out of numbers and letters so that it will actually show up on a screen in a certain way. It's like my
Oregon
brain can't
Trail.
handle it.
Oregon Trail. It all starts from somebody's idea. Even the start of even a great story. When you're working, for example, like with an animated series,
Hmm.
there was like a storyteller, there was a writer, there was it's something that happened to make this a reality. And then you have to like inspire artists to draw this shit at the
Right.
same time. It's like you need to get like everybody on board and kind of be like, do you understand where
Hmm.
do you know where I'm going with this? Like, can we go this direction? Oh, can we do? Okay, we're limited with that, so we can't do this.
Yep.
That is just insane, especially 25 years ago.
When they had to record everything on tape still, I think
Yep,
25 years
and
they would have
floppy
been
disks.
had those
Yeah,
restrictions.
it was
Like
rough.
I love the story about how the song Frankenstein was made by the Edgar Winter Group, because what they did was
Let me see.
they they took the tape and they just had this like really long jam session, and
Oh
there's
yeah, I
like
know what you're talking about. Okay.
4 or 5 different like cuts of it where it's like they just kept adjusting what parts of the song were being used with just like I think it was masking tape is what they used to, or not masking tape, cellophane, but they would just tape.
All about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast, period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
The different parts of the recording together, and by the end of it, they looked like Frankenstein's monster. So that's how they came up
One
with the
called
name.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, even in that era, you had people like Brian Eno,
Mhm.
which I mean revolutionized the entire like industry regards to like digital effects and special effects and like beyond. A lot of it comes from practical effects. Like we were saying earlier, like
Mhm.
when you are even taking in when designing these things, there's a lot of like practical things you have to consider
Mhm.
before even getting on the drawing board and
Yeah.
getting it started. And like today, we don't have any of these limitations. Like we could sit here right now, me and you right now, and we could design a game with AI in like 2 hours. Two
Yeah.
hours, maybe three. I'd say about two.
It might not be a good game, but it would be a game.
It'd be a game, yeah. But like that is a reality that exists 20 years in the future where we are right now. Like
Mhm.
25 years ago, not even 10 years ago, this was not a reality.
Mhm. Yeah, it's mind blowing.
Just so much has changed.
The barriers to entry have definitely been eradicated.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, especially with even for yourself, like with voice acting,
Mm-hmm.
you got to. Some people find like inspiration from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you seem like somebody that you found inspiration, like for example, like from the '90s or '80s, like your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that flows from?
Some of the earliest influences I think that I came across would be a lot of the work that Robin Williams and Jim Carrey did, because I'm kind of an oddball. If you actually got the time to see me in my element, that's I annoyed the heck out of somebody back when I was in college because I was sitting in kind of a communal space and I sang "C is for Cookie" for like 15 minutes straight. So
You got to get that on YouTube.
yeah, maybe.
Uh,
But
yeah.
yeah. So that's another influence was all of the different Muppet stuff, Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock and the Muppet
Oh,
Show.
Fraggle! Oh my God, Fraggle Rock was amazing. I watched it on VHS. Yeah.
I got it on DVD when I was a teenager, and I don't think I ever made it through all of it, at least not all of the DVDs, but I got close.
It was. It's just hilarious because they're all puppets,
Hmm.
and it's
Again,
just
practical effects.
yeah, and practical effects, and it's just like it's just so funny. You know, you're just watching this just giant fluffy thing that's definitely controlled by a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, whoa, you're just going along with it, and it's weird and it's bananas, and it definitely is old as shit. Like especially now, but like
Hmm.
it's amazing.
The
It's amazing.
the only thing more impressive to me than like watching the finished product is watching the behind the scenes, because to see what they had to do in order to make some of that stuff work, like inside of the Gorgs, like the big Gorg costumes, there was a monitor, and the monitor was outside of them, showing them what they were doing. Like it was basically the cam to cam of what they were doing. So they had to look at that to see what they were doing, but then they had to also remember, okay, because I see myself, I need to do the opposite of what I think I need to do. Like if they didn't have the mirrored. So if they moved to the left, they would, you know,
It's
move
crazy.
right on the screen. So it's like how they got that to work, I don't
I
know.
mean, if like especially to be able to voice that thing,
Mhm.
that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like you know, you're in the. I mean, it probably gets hot in that costume,
Hmm.
but I don't know. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. And then the other one, Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, the movie that Frank Oz directed back in the 80s.
Which movie?
Um, Little Shop of Horrors had Rick Moranis and Steve Martin, and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
the
Oh, that
big
was a
finale
that
for
was a
that,
weird movie.
they had the giant plant, and
Mm-hmm.
the biggest version of the plant had like 50 puppeteers moving it.
Yeah, it
And
was not. It was It was animatronic.
it was a giant puppet, but yeah, like 50 different performers were helping move the different parts of the puppet, and they had to record the song that it was used in at like 1/8 speed. So like for every whatever it is 30 frames of the movie that you see, that took 8 times as long in real life to actually do all of those movements, and then they just sped it up. It's like
It's it's like it's crazy because it's all about, well, how can we make this work?
mm-hmm.
Can't do this in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, so what can we do to make it happen in real life? That's literally what it's literally playing pretend.
It was like they were doing a stop motion at full scale in real time. It's like, oh my god.
I mean, stop motion in itself. I mean, I'm like, I'm a little bit of I'm a little bit of a hardcore Tim Burton fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, one of my favorite Christmas movies is A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yep.
It's stop motion, but
Mm-hmm.
it's. Hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say if you've been enjoying the podcast, I'm enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing, someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode. Amazing. You know, and like, just to think, like, there was somebody that had to like take off the face and put on another one, and then they have to like move around Jack Skellington and like get all the characters.
And to put it so close to where it was before, so that it only moves just that little bit between shots. You just need to have that such a mastery of your spatial awareness and framing and all of those things.
There's a beautiful element to like the visual part of things. It's not like you're like being a part of a story. You're also like seeing a picture play itself out.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not necessarily like real, like we're talking about like stop motion and practical effects, I don't know, it still feels comforting. You know, it still feels like a genuine part of the story.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't quite like there is a little bit of that uncanny valley, but at the same time not as much as you would get from something like a lot of the especially early AI kind of stuff. Because with that it's like you've got like all sorts of different abominations just coming out of thin air where it's like that doesn't look like anything that's ever existed.
No. I mean, you could take it even a step further, right? You know, you take like a movie like Alien that came out in 79. You barely see the alien the entire movie. Like, I think there's maybe like 2 parts. I think that's all it is.
Same with Jaws. You know, you barely see the shark, and part of the reason why you barely see the shark in Jaws is because it broke down constantly when they were trying to use it. So it's like they didn't have that much footage to draw from, but you can use that to your advantage when you're, you know, building in things like suspense, because then it's like you use the tension and then you finally get the release when you get to those key moments. And that's another kind of interesting thing with storytelling is like you use what you have, but at the same time, it can work to your advantage.
It's weird. Also, now there are a lot of filmmakers that are still holding on to those practical effects. You know, indie filmmakers. You have even Wes Anderson is still a great example of this. He still heavily uses practical effects in all of his films, and it's kind of crazy. Whenever he comes out with a movie, he's like, "Oh my god." Because you know it's just going to be a movie full of practical effects, and it's just like we still gravitate towards that, even with all the CGI and all the things that we have developed. People are like, "Can we get what we had like 20 plus years ago, or like even less?" You know?
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing with having so many different kind of like practical effects is that it means that you can have a lot more people involved in a production who have those kind of specialties or specializations where that's something that they've put decades of their life into figuring out how to make it work. And if you don't have those things, it's like, well, what are they going to do? Because you almost need to have somebody with a vision who's willing to accept those types of specialists into their productions to say, okay, we need you to make these things. Otherwise, they just kind of it's kind of a lost art, and it's gonna make it so that there aren't as many people willing to do it in the future, because it's like, what's the point of me learning this if no one's going to utilize it?
I wonder, you know, when you, because I've always been like a type of artist that I love films and music and TV shows and just like the whole like other side of the thing. But when you look at even storytellers like even Gene Roddenberry, where, you know, he tells the story of what the future looks like, you see a very different aspect. Even though that we're still so much like we have technology and different things, there's still that aspect of interaction and practicality with the way that, you know, they operate, the way that they communicate, the different types of machines and things they're working on. You know, you still have a bunch of people still playing key roles. And I think that gets looked on. It's like yeah, things are going to get easier and things are going to advance, but we still hold on to those things that make us us, which is we're crafters, we're
Mm,
idea thinkers, we build things, we make things, and that is the way that we shape tomorrow. That's how we've always done it.
yeah. 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 We get to use our time however we like, and cast our votes for what kind of people we want to be, what kind of a world we want to be in. And
Have you been have you been able to work on any projects like dream projects that you've always wanted to work on or anything
uh,
like that?
not yet. I'm still a bit on the onset of my voice acting career, that I haven't been exposed to a whole lot of industry connections that would be able to, I think, make that a reality. But at the same time, those types of roles are the most highly sought after. So depending on who's casting it, they're going to be looking for the cream of the crop. And when you start looking into that, you're getting down to the I'm trying to think which one it is. Is it Price's Law? There's some basically thought that came out about, I think it started out as research papers, and they looked at the total body of work that was being published in a given year, and then looked at the total number of authors, and they were able to figure out that, hey, for this many people, you take the square root of the total population, and they make half of everything that gets written. So if you've got 100 different authors, 10 people are writing half of the work. So when you start expanding that, and you go into populations of, I think SAG-AFTRA, I think they've got, what is it, 180,000 members. So we'll call it 200,000. What's the square root of 200,000? It's like, it's less than 1,000 people that are
Okay.
getting half of the work.
Yeah.
So it's mind-boggling.
It is. You bring up an excellent point, but on the flip side of the coin is even in the realm of podcasting, I've been doing this since 2021. I
Yeah.
don't have a large podcast. The thing is, I'm very well established because I've been
Mm-hmm.
around for so long. Where um, you you reach a point where it's not about like the highest level that you've reached. It's the amount of work you yourself have done and accomplished
Mm-hmm.
as an artist and as a creator. You know, it's those little stepping stone milestones. Yeah, like the truth is there are thousands of people that are doing this, but the reality is I'm part of the 10% because
Mm-hmm.
most people don't make it to 100
I
episodes.
I think you're in probably the 1%.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
probably in the
I
1%.
think I
I'm
think
yeah.
the cutoff for that's like 20 episodes. If you can make it past 20 episodes, you're in the top 1% of all podcasts.
But you have to be able to love what you do for what it is to you more than
Mm-hmm.
anything else. Like I enjoy being able to have these conversations with people like yourself because like oh my god, you've had your experience with like video games and your love of just the structure of how things are made in films and being able to find a career in voice acting. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about earlier, Robin Williams is the greatest example of this. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, the man had a successful career." He had a horrendous career. Okay? He was bullied, tormented, abused, treated like shit, committed suicide cuz he couldn't fucking handle life anymore. Like that was a man that was tormented because he just had this thirst to just be as successful as he possibly can, just be happy and structured. And look where that got him. There's always that you need that balance. You need
Mm-hmm.
that balance in life to be able to be like, I'm doing this for me. This is what I want to be good at. This is what I want to better myself in
Yeah.
more than anything else.
And I think a good way to do that is to have a good understanding of the industry, but also what you're capable of, and being able to sort of inform your own goals, so that it's not about, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So finding ways to get those wins and not have it be about, oh, I got this job. It was, I made this thing. And for a lot of actors, I think what is the most beneficial goal that they could be setting is the audition. You know, did I get the audition in? Yes. Okay, good. If I didn't, we still have tomorrow. Tomorrow we can always do better. And it's from a lot of the well established actors. I think there's been interviews where Robert De Niro said this. I want to say maybe like Paul Rudd or a few others have also gone on to say this, but it's the audition is the job. And if you can get through it, that's all that matters, because our goal as actors is to just give people interesting characters that have risks that they're taking and show our unique contribution to what that role would be if we were cast in it. And the casting directors and everybody else involved in the production want you to succeed. So as long as you can do that in your most authentic way, I think, you know, anybody who auditions for stuff will be successful.
Yeah. It again, it's not taking away the fact that it's easy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you're talking about any type of career that you want that revolves around you yourself, you know, either using your hands, your mind, your voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be extremely difficult, but it's not impossible.
Right.
It's just, you know, you have to be able to be able to get there. And you know, I think the thing that makes you the most successful is yourself. You know, if you can be the most genuine version of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
people will see that. You know, people are like, no, that's not true. Yes, it is. It's very true. Like if you
Yeah.
put on a facade and pretend to be something you're not, you know, show
Mm-hmm.
up and say, yeah, I'm confident, but clearly you're not.
Yeah.
You're already presenting yourself in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was one thing that I think I had a pretty incorrect frame of mind when I was like really early on in my acting career. Like I was, you know, still a teenager at this point, thinking, oh, part of the reason why I want to pursue acting is because I don't want to be myself. You know, I want to put on characters and I want to be somebody else because then I can maybe convince myself that life's not so bad. And that's the wrong mindset to be working from. I think it is, you need to be comfortable in your own skin enough that, you know, anything that happens you can just kind of shrug off. I've sort of developed a lot more of a stoic mindset. You know, the people like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, those are some of the people that I look up to now. So and they didn't have great lives either. I know, or Marcus Aurelius, he had what I think some people might consider a decent life in the fact that he was the ruler of the Roman Empire at one point. But you know, it's not all that it's cut out to be.
I know you're talking. What was the name of the book that he wrote?
Meditations. It was his journal.
Yes.
It was his personal journal that he was using to kind of collect his own thoughts. And the goal was never for it to ever see the light of day. It was just for his own personal musings, and so that he could kind of
How did
wrap
they?
his head around
Do you know how
what
they
he was.
found it?
I do not. I'm not entirely sure how they would have come across it, but I'm sure it was a matter of after he died, it was just there, and somebody managed to take it and get it to a place where it was able to be either transcribed or just perpetuated in a form that didn't go by the wayside. And then here it is, all of these centuries later, that we can,
It's it's
and the
amazing.
fact that we're using it as a form of you know, gleaning from the past, sort of the human experience, and how to go through it without having to be tormented endlessly by our own existence.
It's an incredible, almost. telescope view into Roman life and Roman culture during that
Mhm.
time. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like like it's almost like you're in the character's head.
Mhm.
We call that first person,
Yeah.
but that type of writing style, like we were talking about, was very much something that was kept internal. There
Mhm.
was like a turning point where the idea of first person, where the person telling the story
Mhm.
became a narrative. I mean, like the greatest example is like when you look at Shakespeare, it's the
Mhm.
complete opposite. It's not first person at all. You know, you got all these different characters playing different positions, and you have to figure out where the story's going and kind of laying down the ground depending on where everything is.
Mhm.
We as people tend to keep those stories secret and those
Yeah.
stories hidden. I on it, maybe that is why some great movies are great movies, is because of that.
I think that has to do with it, and then also just the vulnerability that it takes to put yourself into a position where you can show sort of that authentic, vulnerable side of yourself to other people. Because that's one thing that's kind of boggled my mind is it's we've got even even unconsciously we're putting on 50 different masks depending on who we're around and what kind of a
Oh yeah.
situation we're in, and nobody can live inside of your head. So you're the only person who actually gets to know who you are at the most fundamental level. And it takes stuff like that, autobiographical works or what have you, to let people in and show that vulnerability.
It's hard to be able to share, especially when you have those stories that have so many emotions and nerve endings,
Mm-hmm.
and those deep ties. This is so cliche, but like one great example that comes to mind is like West End Story.
Okay.
The story itself, like I know it's a musical and they've made it into like a film, but it's
West
so
Side Story.
West Side Story is so, my brain is late.
New
It
York, not London.
not London, wrong place. No, I'm mixing. I'm thinking of American Werewolves in London. Brain. Um,
Well, the West End is where they perform. That's their equivalent to Broadway.
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yes, I'm in the wrong country. Uh, but with that movie, it's just so, the story's just so heartbreaking and just so
Mm.
heart wrenching. But you feel so emotional because as you keep being a part of the story, you resonate with those characters so deeply, even with the traumas and everything that they're going through. It doesn't just do that with like people talking. It just does it with the environment, the change of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like what we were saying earlier, there's so much of that practical element that also makes the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just when people are telling those really personal stories, one thing that makes them even more, what's the word I'm looking for here?
The je ne sais quoi. No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that or just like the the immersion in it comes from just how personal their experience is and how much it ties in with the culture of their lives and the people around them, and the fact that the best storytellers are the ones that can translate that into a format that shows other people what it's like to experience that without having to like beat them over the head with it.
Oh, I gotta know. It's like the other spectrum of that is like I obviously like you look at the '90s and all of the films are just parents being the worst parents ever. It's like these poor kids that like have to
Mm.
like set up traps for fucking bandits on Christmas. This the list goes
Mm-hmm.
on. And you got this other kid that just goes to a library, ends up in this magical world full of
Mm-hmm.
like fucking things that are gonna kill it. It's just hilarious. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like you got the 60s that are full of like stories like West Side Story, and then you got the 90s. It's just Home Alone and Page Master.
For the Sixth Sense, or
Mrs. Doubtfire. Yeah, there's a
which
lot.
yeah,
Space
Daniel
Jam.
in Mrs. Doubtfire's like had custody taken away from him of his kids, and
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Robin Williams does make a pretty good nanny. I mean,
mm-hmm.
not a pretty woman, but nanny, yes. That was. It was just a crazy decade. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk like the culture shift of just stories? 90, like I dead ass. I feel like you walk into like a director's like circle. You got the director, the producer, you got the writer, and everybody, and there's just like a bag of Coke on the table, and they're like, "All right, guys, we're gonna make a kids movie. Let's go." Okay, idea: rabbit, sexy woman, bing, let's make it. Great time.
Yeah, to be to be a fly on the wall for some of those conversations or some of those meetings, those brainstorming sessions.
I mean, like, we've talked about this before. Like, Jim Carrey's like the greatest example. He came up in his acting career like at the perfect time, like when all of these lunatics, like these people were just drugs galore. Meet this guy that can make all these weird, goofy faces. Are like, we can make some good
We
money
need
off
that,
of this.
yeah.
It's
You get the
crazy.
Dumb and Dumber and The Mask and Ace Ventura and Batman and all of
He
those.
did back and back, like back to back. Like, I think in 94, he had 2 movies, 95, 96, 97, 98, 90. Like, every single year, this man just kept pumping out films.
Mm-hmm.
Like, majority of all of those films today, there's incredibly inappropriate. There's a lot of problems going on, like, especially age gaps between characters. I'm like, whoa. But to be honest, like, I don't care. It's just a movie.
Yeah.
You don't.
It really depends on if you're there to scrutinize or if you're just there to be entertained, because there's stuff like that in every movie, and it's anywhere from plot holes to all of the different things that shouldn't have been in the movies that made it in because of people forgetting them on tables or forgetting to match up the scene and the shot so that, oh, the clock is facing this way, but then in the very next, like when they pan back to it, it's over here now. It's like all of that stuff exists. And are you less entertained because you pick up on stuff like that? Like if you're there with a magnifying glass, it's like intentionally looking for those things, or are you there to just see like, okay, what are these people going through, and how does it turn out?
That reminds me of, I was watching this TikTok, and like growing up as a kid, like I had like Lilo and Stitch came out,
Mm-hmm.
and this bastard on TikTok
Oh
goes
yeah,
ahead.
the thing about the scene on the beach where Lilo's running.
Why did you have to do that? Like, why you could just leave our childhood alone for like just one freaking minute, and it's like. Now, whenever I watch it, it's just like immediate, like, okay, they're not moving. They're still not moving. Why aren't they moving?
Do you want me to ruin something else for you in case?
I mean, we can just keep going.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's just keep ripping all the fucking bandages.
So another podcast host I talked to, who he has his own production company for commercials or whatever, and one thing that he tells people is, when you're looking at an over the shoulder shot and the person who's like you're seeing the back of their head, not only is it probably a stand-in who isn't the same actor as the one when it pans back around to the other shot, but there's also the possibility that when you see their like chin wobble when they're talking, it won't match up with what they're saying.
There you go, folks. All movies, all TV shows ruined.
Yeah.
Ruined. I mean, especially now they do I forgot what it's called. It's like a deep fake where
Mm-hmm.
they can take an actor and they can put another person's face on it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is it is creepy as hell. Is so creepy because
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely feel as human beings, like I'm just a spiritual person. I feel like when people die, we all know as a collective that the person's no longer living. And then all of a sudden, when you resurrect the person from the dead,
Mm-hmm.
there's like a part in our brain that just goes, wee, wee, like,
Yeah. Stranger
nope,
danger.
stranger danger. Like, this person should be under the ground, 6 feet. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
do I see them on the screen right now?
Mm-hmm. And there is a difference between stuff that like existed when they did, and then stuff that comes out after the fact. I mean, there's some situations where it's like, okay, we know that there's a delay between when stuff's recorded and when it's released, so there's that. But then there's a whole nother thing when it's okay. They've been gone for 5 or 10 years now. It should be settled.
Yeah, it's like bringing back, Christopher Lee, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the man was scary enough when he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
You need to bring that man back, and he's
He's
a
not
great
done with
actor.
his
He's
heavy metal career. Or he needs to kill more Nazis.
my God, it's been like honestly, some of these, like we were talking about, like just some of these actors, they have some of the most bizarre backgrounds
Mm-hmm.
imaginable. I mean, you think like, yeah, like they made it, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them made it and suffered. Like, didn't become successful until like a lot later in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, yeah, most of the people that I think are famous now that like are well established and are the main reason why I see a lot of the movies today, they didn't get their break until, and I say break, but they probably had been doing stuff. It's just that they weren't in the public verbiage until probably their 40s for a lot of them.
yeah, and you know what? I feel like that is almost hope because
Mm-hmm.
there is a place for all sorts of artists and all different. You
Mm-hmm.
just have to be able to find it.
Yep.
Like it takes time. And I feel like you need to accept the fact that life comes with patience. You
Mm-hmm.
know, being a TikTok or YouTube star, that is great. What is your
Mm-hmm.
long term goal?
Right. And that's, I think, where a lot of people do mess up is that you've got people like Mr. Beast, Mark Rober. They've got it down to a science how to go viral. And then you've got all of the other people that they haven't got it figured out yet. But part of the reason is because they're impatient. They want to get there. So they're just trying to get through the slog. And they've heard people say, okay, part of the slog is you just need to be releasing content. So they upload a video every day or every week, and they, hell or high water, they got to get there. They got to do the thing to make sure that they get there. But at the same time, what are you only doing it to do it, or are you doing it to get better? Because there is, I think, on one side, there's the people who don't take any sort of feedback or any sort of experience from what they do to improve. And then there's the people that they do latch on to certain things or be like, okay, I know I could be doing this better. How can I do that? And then incrementally, they'll combine that with all of their different reps. And then that's when they finally make it through.
Yeah, you are your worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end game of it all. It's look, not everybody is going to make it. And
Mm-hmm.
some people will be less successful than others.
Mm-hmm.
But whether you believe in God or you whether you believe in a creator, or I don't know, you're atheist. You get this life. And, some people find that by finding a partner, having kids or
Hmm.
what have you. But you have to be able to have a happy life. Like, I'll be honest with you, I have even with like my own grandparents. My grandfather passed away a little bit ago. My grandmother is 87
Hmm.
and she is the go free lady of them all. Everybody loves her.
Hmm.
She is happy go lucky. She loves to go out. She loves to spend time. Like, she's great to talk to.
Hmm.
She's like that because she spent her entire life like doing what she loves. She loved being an aquatics director. She loved teaching people. Like, that's what she did. And
Right.
she had a good life from it. Nobody's telling you to be like Mr. Beast, you know?
Hmm.
I just think like the most healthiest attitude you can do for yourself is be the best and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's like you're cutting yourself short. Well, I need the 9 to 5 to make a living. Guess what? I used to do a 9 to 5. I don't do that anymore. I'm getting a degree to work in the automotive industry so I can work on cars. I get to do something with my hands. And I actually enjoy that.
Hmm.
There are workarounds with everything. It's like you could
Hmm.
come up with the greatest excuse in the world. But at the end of the day, it's the cards are in front of you. You got to make the choice of what you want to do. Plain and
Hmm.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things that people need done and so many things that people want to do. And it's finding kind of that cross section of that with basically your own preferences and aptitudes. I'm sure you're probably aware of the concept of ikigai. That's basically what that is. You just find the thing that intersects with all four of the different quadrants, and you say, okay, I like to do this, and it pays me, and people want it, and it'll give me some sort of a creative outlet, even if that is just like sorting mail. Like that's one thing that I've done in my life. That's like this was actually an enjoyable experience. Was being a substitute for a real mail carrier. It's like people need that. At least now. I don't know in the future if that'll still be a thing, but I mean, if it eventually goes by the wayside, there's going to be other things to pick up. That's the craziest thing about technology is it's like there's always jobs that end up becoming to some degree irrelevant because new technology introduces alternatives so that we don't need to always have the same this or that or the other thing. But it also creates new problems, and with new problems come new solutions, and that's sort of the
Never ending
key key
story.
to key to slide into that opportunity to be like, okay, now we've got self-driving cars. Well, we either need mechanics for the self-driving cars or we need supervisors so that we know that they're actually going where they need to go. So it's like there's always going to be something, but the question is, are you willing to take on the something new and not be afraid of it? Because I know that's one thing that as we get older is we kind of become complacent and we become adverse to change. And really, I think probably the last 150 years of the human experience has been an example that you need to not be afraid of that change that's coming because that's where the opportunity is.
You have to you have to remember that we live in an industrial age like you mentioned. And there's almost like this attitude of work to survive.
Hmm.
That's great, but I'm not going to trust anybody by the time I'm 65 that I'm going to receive my pension. I think that's stupid.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people realize that's kind of stupid because you can't rely on anyone to keep you afloat. The only person that can keep you afloat is you. And the like to your point, like this idea of like being so adamant to change. Trust me, it is hard to change, but the wonderful thing
Hmm.
about change, it comes with amazing opportunities. Like, you restrict yourself, you're limiting yourself. Like, again, we've talked about this before. Like, there's so many people that are going up against the same things you're doing.
Yeah.
Instead of just limiting yourself. See what else you can do. Like put yourself
Hmm.
out to all the different things you can. Like one of the cool things, like I know with voice acting, because I've had other people on, especially with now with technology, is
Hmm.
there's a lot of indie projects that exist, and there's a lot more opportunities where you don't have to go through a middleman anymore. You
Hmm.
could reach out directly with the production company. You can get
Hmm.
in touch with people that are a part of different film districts or groups. Uh, it's become a lot easier for a lot of different sectors. Yeah, it has
Hmm.
limited and like obsoleted certain jobs, but look how much better it's made. Like, yeah, there's the negatives and the positives, but I mean, there's a lot more positives that we have now. It's
Yeah.
just incredible.
Yeah. And I've been lucky enough. I've managed to get in with some of those indie productions. And it's like, yeah, this is the way that it works. You just gotta not be afraid to reach out to people and be like, I'd like to work on your cool thing. Let me know if you want me to work on your cool thing.
It's amazing. I mean, Apple TV, which it's crazy I'm even saying this. Apple TV has some of the most amazing indie TV shows and films you can find on any other streaming platform. And it's just such a breath of fresh air because, like I have such a limited time. Like when I do want to watch something, like I'm just so tired of watching. They got political agendas in there,
Mm,
social norms. I'm like, shut up. Just let me watch something that doesn't involve reality, right? That's why I'm here.
get the escape.
Yes. And it's wonderful when you see a rise of that. And again, like a lot of that has to do with technology. Years ago, for an indie production to be able to have a blockbuster film was next to impossible. I mean, it would cost
Hmm.
millions of dollars. These days, you could do it with a budget of $175,000. It's been done for $75,000.
Hmm.
But I think I forgot the name of it. It was an Italian film. I watched it. Yeah, it was like $75,000. It was like staged in the '80s. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But
Well, what was the budget for Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Because I know it was less than 100,000.
it was very low. I'm gonna check that now.
And I want to say, oh, it was a rock band. I don't remember which rock band, but it was a British rock band. Was basically who funded it.
No fucking way. It was Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin
Yeah.
and
Yep.
Genesis and Genesis.
Yep. So Phil
Uh,
Collins and yeah.
wow, it's an amazing group. It was £229,000.
Okay, so it was more than 100,000, but still wasn't into the millions.
No, but that was kind of the beauty of it too. Where that was kind of the beginning. That was kind of the
Hmm.
beginning for a lot of indie films to get their start. And I mean,
Yeah.
it really did take until the internet started
Yes.
to rise for those production companies to really be able to break the clay. That's a little too old school.
Break ground.
Yeah, there you go. That's a little more
Yeah.
fresh. Break ground.
Yeah. Yeah. To be able to utilize the fact that now you can talk to people from across even the world and get talent, especially for things that you don't have to be there in person for, and yeah, all sorts of different ways to fund things now. So now we've got different crowdfunding websites, or even just like everybody's got social media. So if you know somebody's got some sort of an agenda for, I need to use my money to do something, what better way than to reach out to them and be like, hey, I know you like this thing. Let's make this that's about this thing. And if that's, some sort of sports related thing or entertainment or, any of those different things, it's up to the purview of whoever has the money, but you know.
It's just it's really cool to just see like the flip of the coin because the underground scene for the longest has always been the underdog.
Mhm.
But now almost as if it's the alpha dog. It's what people are gravitating more and more. And I think like it's just a fact of Hollywood's just not cutting it anymore. You know, like I, like Marvel movies kind of suck. Gal
Well,
Gadot is just doing a woke version of Snow White. It's all over the place.
the problem is that it's been played out before, and because we like searching after things that are unique and basically haven't experienced them before, we're always searching for that new high. So it's like, okay, but then at the same time we're giving them all these signals that, oh, we enjoyed this existing intellectual property, so maybe they'll just make another one of those. And that's where, what was it, last year there were, in the top 10 movies at the box office, 9 of them were sequels or remakes. And the only one that wasn't was Wicked. I want to say that's correct.
I'm not a fan.
So, yeah,
I like the
they
I
all,
like the I like the musical.
yeah.
I don't know. I just it's like when they redid West Side Story,
Mm-hmm.
because we were talking about this before. I was like,
Right.
okay, all right, cool. Then they made a version of Cats.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And they just keep on going. It's like, you want to go through all of the musicals, because like Broadway's just got a ton. Like we could just go through the
Yeah.
list. We could just
Well,
start from the 1950s and just keep going down.
that's the thing, is that because they're established stories that people are already familiar with, there's already an audience. So you get that audience for free, and then you also, depending on who's in it, you get their audience, and or they have that kind of draw or appeal, and that's what gets people in the door. And
I know.
that's just how it works now.
It is. And you know what? It's not about like we can change the world. It's what we can do in the moment. For example,
Mm-hmm.
like for even yourself, like being able to get attached with an indie project or something where you collaborate with the team and it's really, really well and you really enjoy the project. Like that could be something really special because you're resonating with the project, and on top of that you're really excited about doing this, and then you do it, and then somebody actually watches it. You get a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of people that are watching, they're seeing you perform, and they're like, oh my god, this is really cool, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
you know that in itself is amazing.
Yeah.
And look, I've never been in Hollywood. I don't feel you can get that same experience if you were around a traditional Hollywood setting, especially now. I feel like you'd
Mm-hmm.
have to be so restricted and convoluted. Like you have to be so careful what you say at every single time. Like, how could you possibly be comfortable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah, is being yourself, especially when you know that there's stuff on the line. And it's like, we talk about taking risks. Well, one risk that you don't want to do is killing your career. And it's like, there's 1,001 ways you can do that. And it's ridiculous.
God. Again, like you literally are your worst enemy. It's bananas.
Yeah.
Um, Grant, I know that you talked about your voice acting. Do you have any social media presence, like a website or anything?
I have my website. That would be grantjohnsonvo.com. VO like voiceover. And that's got links to my YouTube, I might even have my LinkedIn on there. I think I've got my
Fancy.
Twitter or X account on there listed, and it's got my commercial demo and my sound, or my studio, my raw studio sample, my acting resume, all those things. So, and ways to get a hold of me. So
Yeah.
that's probably the most all inclusive website for all of those things.
I mean, hey, I don't know the type of person that might be listening to this, but you never know.
Hmm.
People be listening all the time. It's just a matter of um what I'm going to do is I'll put the links down in the description box below. So if anybody wants to go check it out. And what's your social media handle?
It's at Grant Johnson VO on just about every platform.
Okay.
So
That's pretty easy to
yeah,
remember. Yeah. Keep everything
it kind
simple.
of it kind of works, because then it's like, oh, that's my website. that's how you find me on just about every platform.
I know you gotta keep everything simple. You know, it's like, look, like you want to find me, just put in my name, and then you got the VOAO there at the end of it. I love that. Listen, Grant, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I feel like we've covered a lot of stuff.
We had a lot of tangents.
Oh, it's wonderful. You do have a really good voice for recording. It's sometimes so nice, like you do a podcast, you're like, oh, I got a nice pleasant voice. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad I could be on there. It was a blast.
Anybody out there that if you want to check out more of the podcast, you can find us everywhere and anywhere at All Stupid Pod. So with that, get your motherfuckers next one. Peace out.